What's up guys, this is TheKephas, and recently I started playing Call of Duty World War II, and it inspired me to share my experiences with the game with you guys, and my experiences with shooters as a whole as a visually impaired gamer. As someone with vision at 20/200, extremely nearsighted, no peripheral vision, and completely blind in one eye, you can imagine that shooters are certainly difficult for me to play. Now, back when a shooter was GoldenEye on the N64, it really wasn't a problem at all. I had a lot of fun with that game. But, you know, the maps were smaller, enemies were a lot easier to see, and the game had a much slower pace when compared to modern shooters. I beat that game on the hardest difficulty, unlocked everything, and won many of the multiplayer matches that I'd play with my friends, and I was really good at that game. But as times have changed with Halo, and even more with Call of Duty, maps have gotten bigger, enemies have gotten harder to see, and it has gotten to a twitchy pace. My experience and my performance has gone extremely downhill. Going through life with a visual impairment is a constant reminder of the challenges that I'm faced with on a daily basis. I have to overcome obstacles all the time, and there are many things that I can't do. Can't drive, can't do certain jobs, and as a kid I couldn't play sports. But when those sports-playing kids would come over and play Mortal Kombat with me, and I'd beat their faces in, it felt pretty good. You see, in real life, I have limitations, but in the video game world, I was the same as everybody else. So you can imagine how it felt for me to have my limitations smack me in the face in a game like Call of Duty where I'm being constantly destroyed by dude bros and getting my face kicked in by little kids who apparently did some inexplicable things to my mother last night. It was tough, but it's what all my friends wanted to play because Call of Duty back then was at its peak, and I would endure. And most games I did pretty terrible. I was at the bottom of the scoreboards all the time. I'd be lucky if I got 5 kills. Every now and then I'd have a pretty good game, but it was mostly luck or just playing against a really scrubbed team. But when you can only see a small portion of the screen at once and your reaction time is lousy because you can't really focus in a game where whoever sees who first wins, there was only so much I could do. So after a while I took a break from shooters. I couldn't get into Call of Duty's futuristic themes, and Battlefield wasn't an option because of the size of the maps, and I just started playing other games for a while, until a game called Overwatch came out. My expectations were very low going into this game, and I was expecting to get creamed on a regular basis like I had been on every other shooter that I'd played. But as it turns out, Overwatch was the game I needed to play to reinvigorate my confidence level when playing games in this genre, because I was doing pretty good. Overwatch has a lot of factors that go into why it's a much more accessible game for me. For one, you've got much more linear maps. You see, in games like Call of Duty, enemies can come at you from all angles, high and low, from behind, from the sides, in front of you, and it's a lot harder to pay attention to all your surroundings. But in a game like Overwatch, for the most part, maps are pretty linear. Enemies come from one direction, allies come from the other direction, and you pretty much only need to pay attention to what's right in front of you, which took away a lot of my disadvantage. On top of that, the sound design was so on point that I could distinguish footsteps based on what characters were making them. So having all those different sound effects in the game allowed me to rely on my hearing to know what to expect around the corner. On top of that, there were characters that were perfect for someone like me. For example, Junkrat, who doesn't need precise aiming, and Torbjorn, who has an automatic turret that basically does all the shooting for you. Overwatch was the first time in a long time when playing a shooter where I didn't feel disadvantaged because of my vision. If I sucked, it was because I sucked, and that was a really good feeling. So I hung out in that game for a good long time, but unfortunately after a while I had to take a much needed break, for my health. You see, I was playing Overwatch so much that my kidneys almost shut down. It turns out there's a lot of salt in that game. So after Overwatch, I moved on to Titanfall 2, and that game was a lot of fun. And even though it was a lot more like Call of Duty, I found myself having a lot of success in that game. You know, I wasn't the greatest player in the world, but I wasn't terrible either, and I wasn't getting dominated like I used to in Call of Duty. To be completely honest with you, I really can't pinpoint why I do better in Titanfall 2. Maybe Overwatch's contributions to my confidence level plays a part, Or maybe it's because I just have so much fun in Titanfall 2 that I naturally do better. But for whatever reason, I do. I enjoy my time in that game. It was a completely unexpected delight. And if you haven't played it, I highly recommend it. And soon after that came the latest Call of Duty, and for whatever reason I decided to pick it up. This was, quite frankly, met with immediate regret, and I was doing so bad again that I almost considered returning the game the night I bought it. It was a return to the dark days, back when I was getting completely annihilated in Call of Duty. And if it hadn't been for my fiance, who encouraged me to give it a few more tries and give it a couple days, I probably would have turned it off, never played it again, and gotten my money back. But after a couple days, I started to discover some things about the game that really helped me out. Now, I tend to struggle in most of the traditional game modes, but in World War II, there's a game mode called War, and in that mode, I do a whole lot better. War is a 6 versus 6 team battle. One side is attacking, the other side is defending. The attacking side is trying to complete 3 objectives. The defending side is trying to stop them until the time runs out. This is a very similar mode to the game modes in Overwatch. So a lot of times you're escorting tanks or capturing points, and it results in the maps being very linear. The enemy comes from one side, your allies come from the other side. This allows me to focus most of my attention on one main area, right in front of me, without having to worry too much about getting blindsided. And just like in Overwatch, as a result, most of my disadvantage is taken away. And because there are objectives, I know where the enemy is going, which allows me to predict their locations much easier. This is in stark contrast to Team Deathmatch, where enemies can come from anywhere, often resulting in me getting blindsided. So as long as I stuck to War, I saw myself having a much better experience. And then I unlocked a very specific perk or basic training called Lookout. And this was an extremely significant game changer for me. Lookout makes it so that you can see enemies from further away, and it also increases minimap coverage. Now, I have never been able to use the minimap in any Call of Duty game because it's tucked away in the corner of the screen, and if I look at it, I'm not able to look at anything else. So it's just out of my field of view, meaning that it's completely useless for me. So only the first half of this perk actually helps me, but it's massive. It makes it so that the enemy's name appears above their heads from much further away. It just makes enemies pop out, and I'm less likely to overlook one that's in my field of view. It's amazing. It may as well just be a big red neon light that says, "Shoot here." And if you play a sniper class who uses the Lookout perk, you'll be able to see the names from even further away. So for the first time in any Call of Duty game, I'm actually able to snipe. I've even got to quickscope a time or two.
They're building a bridge! Stop the...
So all in all, I'm having a lot of fun in this game. More than I've ever had in any Call of Duty. It, along with Overwatch and Titanfall 2, has leveled the playing field quite a bit for me. And for the most part, my vision rarely gets in the way. There's only one thing that really sticks to my blind side in Call of Duty World War II, and that's the loot boxes. But that's a video for another day. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that like button. And feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. You can also subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter at TheKephas to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. Thanks for watching, have a wonderful day, this is Kephas, until next time.